So what is the BRICS Alliance and why should you care? Well, I think you should care because they're about to make a lot of us much poorer. That's just one reason to care. I also think, and I'm suspecting, that they may be significantly connected to the beast of Revelation. But let's back up a little bit and start to talk about them and why they caught my attention. So what is the BRICS Alliance? Well, right now, it is a significant alliance of 5 countries. The acronym BRICS, B-R-I-C-S, is formed by the first letter of the names of their countries. So the B is for Brazil, which is, if it's not the largest economy in South America, it's very significant, has a lot of oil. R is Russia, the I is India, the C is China, and the S is South Africa. So you can see how this alliance could be important with those kind of countries being the founding members of it. But of course, there's lots of organizations that have been looked at, examined, hypothesized to be the beast of Revelation, including the European Union for many years. You know, before the European Union had 10 members, there was a lot of speculation. Oh, this is the coming revived Roman Empire. Perhaps you've heard that. The revived Roman Empire, that will be the beast of Revelation, is what people have thought and taught for many decades. It's not actually an accurate biblical teaching, and we're going to look at why. But the European Union was one that was looked at, and they started getting excited when it approached 10 members. Why? Because the beast of Revelation has 10 horns, which is something we're going to talk about. But then, of course, the European Union went way past 10, and so did NATO, and every other alliance centered around Europe. And so people have continued to look, and they've postulated, well, maybe there'll be 10 main leaders or some other combo that'll make it make sense later. But let's look at why, first of all, since we've had this teaching about the revived Roman Empire for so many years being the beast of Revelation, a European-centered beast, why is that not possible, biblically speaking? Well, let's look at the verses, and we're going to get back to the BRICS Alliance and talk about why they caught my attention in a second. But wanted to kind of go through other possibilities and explain why we understand what we understand. So in chapter 13 of Revelation, which is one of the primary passages about the beast, the coming beast system, it says in verse 1, "And I saw a beast rising up out of the sea," out of the oceans. That may seem insignificant. You may think, oh, well, John just saw a beast coming up out of the ocean, no big deal. Until you get to verse 11, where we see another beast, which would be the false church, the false religious system, the false prophet. And it says he saw this beast rising up out of the earth. So the first one came up out of the oceans. The second one came up out of the earth. At that point, you stop and you realize that must be an important differentiating detail that God gave us to help us know what we're seeing when we see it. And also teaches us something spiritually speaking. So in the Bible, the oceans always represent the nations of the world, the unsaved nations of the world that rage against God. All right. And that's clear. So many times the oceans are compared to the nations. The earth then is not the nations. So it's the kingdom of Christ. And I discussed this at length in my book, The Gospel According to Nature. I don't believe these symbols are debatable. Okay, the oceans, if you want to debate them, go, take a look at my book, look at everything I lay out of why we know from the Bible that land represents the kingdom of God and the oceans represent the world or the nation. So this is telling us that the beast itself, what you could call the Antichrist beast, this empire that he will rule, is going to rise up out of non-Christian or non-Western nations, okay? Whereas the false prophet is going to come from the kingdom, so to speak, Western nations, Christian society, maybe even an actual church leader. That's what that means. Now, we see in the next verse, verse 2, it says, this beast was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and the mouth like the mouth of a lion. Okay. But he has 10 horns and 7 heads. So, body like a leopard, feet like a bear, mouth like a lion, 10 horns, 7 heads. The 10 horns, the leopard, the bear, and the lion images connect all of this back to the beast of Daniel 7, which we're going to touch on as well. This is the same beast that was seen as the final beast of Daniel 7. But what is significant, why leopard, why bear, why lion? Because in Daniel 7, those animals were used to represent the Greek Empire, the Persian Empire, and the Babylonian Empire. So it's saying that the beast is going to cover all of that territory. Okay, and there may be more to it than that even, because it may be, when it says the feet of a bear, it may be that the part of the beast empire that is corresponding to Persia or Iran may provide the going, like the vehicles, the you know, something to do with transportation going out, the military might, I don't know. There might be something to that detail. It probably is. But what we see is that this territory that was controlled by Alexander the Great at the end, but started with Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon, which is now Iraq, that's not the footprint of the Roman Empire. Okay, the Roman Empire did not control Iraq and Iran. They controlled around the Mediterranean. Europe, yes, they controlled Israel and northern Africa, but they did not go further into the Middle East. So, again, a disqualifier for the concept of a revived Roman Empire, of a European Central Empire. And then if we go to Revelation 17, it says it very clearly. It says, we're talking about the heads right now. Well, back in 13, let's clarify one more detail. I saw one of his heads, this is verse 3. I saw one of the heads, one of the 7 heads, 10 horns. I saw one of the heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world marveled and followed the beast. Okay, so the heads, though, this has been interpreted to mean that the Antichrist himself is going to be mortally wounded, that he'll be killed and then raised from the dead, maybe in a fake resurrection or an imitation resurrection like Jesus by the devil. That somehow the devil could do that, and that's when the devil will enter him and make him really evil. And where does all that teaching come from? I don't know. It's not in Scripture. Okay, it's just man's theories, our theories. It says one of the heads was mortally wounded. The heads are not individuals. The heads are empires. Okay, and Scripture itself tells us that. The horns are individual leaders, but the heads are not. So, in chapter 17, verse 9, it says, here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. There are also 7 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other has not yet come. Okay. And when he comes, he must continue a short time. The beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th and is of the 7th and is going to perdition. So the beast, as we saw rising up, it is an empire. It's not just an individual. It's an empire. It's a kingdom. And we know that from this verse, the beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th. So unless somebody is being reincarnated, if this was talking about an individual, the beast, then if he was being reincarnated, his only way it could be in the past and is not now, but he's coming back. Okay, that's not what it's saying. What it's saying is that these 7 heads are 7 mountains. And we remember the mountain of God that crushed the statue in Daniel, that was the kingdom of God. So these mountains are kingdoms. It's not referring to Rome, okay? Because it says And that's the other error people make. Say, well, yeah, Rome had 7 hills. No, that's not what it's talking about. Because it says 5 have fallen, 1 is not. Did 5 of the hills in Rome fall? And 1 wasn't existing at that time and 1 more was coming? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, it's not talking about 7 physical hills or physical mountains. It's talking about 7 kingdoms or empires. 7 empires that have ruled over the land of Israel. Every empire that has ruled over the land of Israel since time began is represented by these 7. Because Israel has either ruled itself or it's been ruled by an empire throughout history, right? Starting with Abraham, he and his family were independent. And then they went down to Egypt, okay, and became slaves there. And then Egypt ruled over the land of Israel until the Exodus. Egypt is the first mountain, okay? It's part of the big beast. This beast that has been given power by the dragon and been in power throughout history. One of its heads was Egypt, okay? But then we had the Exodus led by Moses. God used Moses to free Israel. They returned to the land and they were in control of their own land up until 722 BC, okay, when the kingdom of Assyria came down, okay, and conquered, all right, and took them away. Then you had Babylon, which was number 3, the third head. Babylon was conquered by Persia, which is number 4, Medo-Persia. Then you had number 5, Alexander the Great conquered Persia. That was Greece, okay. Then Greece was replaced by Rome. That's number 6. Rome was number 6, not number 7. And in fact, when was John writing? John was writing while the Roman Empire was in power, right? John was writing while the Roman Empire was in power, number 6. And what does he say? He says, 5 have fallen. 5 have fallen. 1 is. Okay? So number 6 is. And the other has not yet come. The other has not yet come. Number 7, he says, has not yet come, living in the Roman Empire time. Okay, so what replaced the Roman Empire? Did Israel come back into control of its own land? No. The Roman Empire was replaced by the Islamic Caliphate. The Islamic Caliphate is the iron beast of Daniel 7 that is different from all those before it, not based on wealth, but on religious conquest, tearing to pieces. The Islamic Caliphate, which later was rebranded or renamed the Ottoman Empire for a time, was based in Turkey, okay? The Islamic Caliphate was based in Turkey. The Muslim faith requires that the Caliph, the supreme leader of the Islamic Caliphate, has to be from Turkey. In fact, they have prophecy about there's a Muslim Messiah. I've talked about him on other videos, called the Mahdi. The Mahdi is the one they say is going to create the final revived Islamic Caliphate, okay? And Muslim prophecy says that this new Caliph, this Muslim Messiah, the Mahdi, has to be from Turkey, which is where the Islamic Caliphate was based originally in the Ottoman Empire. So Turkey is a major, number 7 is connected to Turkey, that geographic area, but also the faith and system of the Islamic Caliphate. Well, Assyria, number 2, was also basically Turkey, the same geographical area, right? And notice that the 7 churches of Revelation are also in Asia Minor and Turkey. So that explains why it says the beast that was Assyria and is not, because it's not the Roman Empire. John is saying the beast is not currently existing, meaning the final beast is not currently existing because it's the Roman Empire, number 6. But when the Islamic Caliphate returns, it's the revived Assyrian Empire the Islamic Caliphate was the revived Assyrian Empire, but now with a new faith, which is another fulfillment of prophecy. But we saw that one of the heads in Revelation 13, it says one of the heads was mortally wounded. Okay? And that is true. The Islamic Caliphate, the Ottoman Empire, was mortally wounded, killed in 1923 by the Lausanne Treaty at the end of World War I. All right. So it died. And Israel has been in control of its own land since. Okay. However, the current leader of Turkey, President Erdogan, who just happens to be a pretty evil and pompous guy, all right, and who built himself illegally the largest house in the world. He has a larger house than Putin or President Xi or anybody. 1,000 rooms. If you ever listen to him talk, he's very arrogant, right? And guess what else? If you take his name and you take it and write it in Greek, which the book of Revelation was written in Greek, and you add up the numerical values of the letters of his name, guess what you get? 666. Okay? It's the only name I've ever tested that does that. It's funny because the name of Jesus, if you take Jesus in Greek and add it up, what do you get? 888. 888, the number of God. Okay? And in fact, Revelation 13 says, if you're trying to figure out what that number is, it says, here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. It's the number of his name. That's what it says. So that's a major clue. And this guy, Erdogan, whose name adds up to 666, as Revelation tells us to test, guess what he wants to do? He wants to revive the Islamic Caliphate. He says that's his life goal, to revive the Ottoman Empire, to revive the Islamic Caliphate. That's what he's intending to do. He said it very clearly over and over and over and over again. In fact, this year is the year where he says he's going to really get started with this. 2023. He's been talking about it for 8 years. I've got a lot of information about this in my book, Revelation Unfolding. Okay. Why now? Because the Lausanne Treaty that mortally wounded the seventh head in 1923 expires this year. It had a 100-year term. It's expiring. Okay. So if we consider a revived Islamic Caliphate, then it makes sense. Because if he created that, and his name adds up to that, he would have the same footprint as the leopard and the bear and the lion, as Revelation 13 says. Makes a lot of sense, okay? And has made a lot of sense. That's why I've been talking about this for years. But now we have this new alliance forming, the BRICS Alliance, which seems very big and powerful. This current union of Russia, China, India, South Africa, and Brazil, they have I think it's 40% of the world's population represented. And 23 or 24% of the world's GDP. That's pretty strong. So the question is, how strong is this alliance? Do they just get together and chat and have coffee and talk? Or are they doing something of substance? You know, a lot of these organizations and alliances don't do anything. They just talk and have policy recommendations and want to act like they're doing something. But the BRICS Alliance is very different. It is the non-Western world's answer to NATO and the hegemony of the United States and its allies. So the entire purpose of the BRICS Alliance is to form a very strong economic and political and military alliance between countries to counteract, to fight against the United States and NATO. Okay, so that makes it kind of serious. And then you think, well, all of a sudden this is becoming competition for the beast, for a potential Islamic Caliphate. So what if the BRICS Alliance is the beast? And in fact, when I look at the Islamic Caliphate idea, which I believe is what Scripture is teaching, where are the 10 horns? I understand the 7 heads, but what about the 10 horns? I'm not sure. So anyways, my attention has been riveted recently by the BRICS Alliance and what they're doing, because They are getting stronger. And they've announced that they're going to release a new world reserve currency backed by gold. So all of these central banks, just think about the population of the peoples involved. Just Russia, India, and China, not to mention Brazil and South Africa. Their central banks have been buying up gold like crazy. And they've announced it. It's not conspiracy theory. They've said they're doing this soon. Very soon, they're releasing a new currency that is like a basket of all their currency. Like they're backing it with all their currencies, which are all backed by gold, which the American dollar is not backed by gold, nor is the euro. They're much more fragile. Okay, so this would be a serious competition. They've also already begun trading oil and other things, interchanging currencies between themselves without using the dollar SWIFT system, bypassing that. Their central banks, and they're getting other countries' central banks to return dollars to the United States to get rid of the dollar as their reserve currency. This is a major deal, and this is how we're going to lose a lot of wealth in the United States, because the dollar, as people don't want it anymore internationally, is going to lose value. And that's going to impact your purchasing power, because anything that is imported is immediately going to go up in price because the dollar won't be as strong to buy it, these imports. So you will have to pay more, and that's going to impact your savings. This is definitely going to impact all of us financially. And they're not going backwards, and it really doesn't seem like there's a way to, especially given the current weakness in the United States, how would we defeat this BRICS Alliance when we're not even, we're divided on everything as a country? How are we going to unite against such a powerful alliance that is forming? So this world currency announcement definitely got my attention, because they are creating an alternative financial system, an alternative banking exchange, currency exchange system. And that sets them up, allows them to possibly become the beast system. Okay, I know everybody's watching Europe and these global elites, but you gotta understand, global elites are the whore of Babylon. They're not the beast. They're the whore of Babylon. You can't identify the global elites of Europe and the West as the beast simply because of the passages I just laid out, which prohibit it. But also because then who is the whore? Who is the whore? Okay, who is the whore? And we know that God has very clearly in many dreams and visions said the United States is Babylon and the West is Babylon. Okay, Babylon the Great is, Mystery Babylon is the United States. That is what God is saying. I resisted that understanding for a long time, because I've known that the Bible is Israel-centric, Middle Eastern-centric, not European-centric. But in this case, there's too many people God has said this to. Prophetic words, dreams, and visions. He's made the identification of the United States as Babylon the Great, Mystery Babylon, very clear. There's no doubt about that. And that means that Western powers are not the beast. They're the whore of Babylon. Okay? So, but we still have this mystery of the 10. The 10 horns. Because right now, what we have is a future Islamic Caliphate revived that hasn't happened yet. And it could have 10 Muslim nations that form its alliance, which is something I had thought would probably be the case. Maybe 3 would be violently conquered by the Antichrist, and the other 7 would come under him voluntarily. That's what I thought. Why did I think that? Because in Daniel 7, he saw the same beast with 10 horns. And he says, I was considering the horns. It had 10 horns. This is verse 8. Yes, I think I said that. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them. The little horn, that is the Antichrist. So if there were already 10 horns, and a new little horn comes up among them, that's actually an 11th horn, right? A little one coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this little horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. So The little horn is an 11th that rises up among the 10, conquers 3, rips 3 out by the roots. So that's why I was thinking, okay, so forming the Islamic Caliphate, there's going to be 10 Muslim nations. The Antichrist will be an 11th. He'll conquer 3, and then the other 7 would come under him voluntarily. That's what I had thought. But maybe there's another layer to this. Maybe there's another layer to this. Because as it stands right now, the BRICS Alliance, which is the power forming this alternative world reserve currency, they only have 5 member nations, right? So that was like, okay. However, there's lots of talk, lots of news articles out there about how BRICS, there's lots of countries asking to join BRICS. In fact, that is the new movement among the world, is countries want to become part of BRICS. They want to be separate from out, they want to come out from underneath the power of the United States. And they feel like BRICS would be more balanced, where they're all evil. I mean, honestly, right now, if you think, it's almost like a who's who of James Bond villains. You got Vladimir Putin, who I'm pretty sure is Gog, okay, allied with President Xi of China, who is, taking organs out of people in concentration camps. And then you've got, not to mention the way he oppresses his people, you've got Modi of India, which you may not know much about this guy, but India was a peaceful country for the most part. Christians could live there in general. There was some persecution from the Muslims, but not too bad. But Modi is this radical Hindu that believes that Hinduism and India's national being are intimately connected, and has basically not done, you could say he's even promoted violence against Christians. Okay, definitely is not protecting them. And persecution by Hindus against Christians in India is through the roof. Okay, because of him and his political party, his people that follow him. So he's a bad guy. And then you got South Africa, which is like led by a government that is wanting to commit racial genocide against whites in a lot, but they're kind of restrained, but they definitely are wanting to. Like they've got no problem passing laws about confiscating any property owned by a white person, etc. Definitely not a just or fair government. Okay, and then Brazil, which was led by Bolsonaro, which is kind of a Trump type guy, now is led by a communist named Lula, who is very corrupt and is throwing people in concentration camps. So, political opponents. So you've got 5 very bad leaders. Like I said, it's like a who's who of James Bond villains in the world. And guess who wants to join? Because they're saying that this year they expect BRICS to add 5 more members. Very interesting number that they're saying this year. The same year that President Erdogan is saying he wants to begin reviving the Islamic Caliphate, this very year, they're saying they want to add 5 members to BRICS for a total of 10. 10. That got my attention. That got my attention. Okay, so who are the most likely candidates? And this is where I start to see the connection of prophecy. The most likely candidates to join this year are Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. Egypt's already joined the BRICS Bank. Those 3 are the most certain. Argentina is also very certain, because Russia last year announced Argentina and Iran's bid for membership and talked about how they thought they would be approved very quickly. Then you note that Egypt has also already joined their bank. And Saudi Arabia just signed a peace deal with Iran, okay, negotiated by China. Why did that happen? Because Iran has become a strong partner of Russia. They're giving Russia drones and all kinds of things to fight Ukraine. What is going on in Ukraine? Russia's fighting NATO, not Ukraine, they're fighting NATO. And there's this very real perceived threat of the things we've been doing in Ukraine, like biolabs and things like that. And Russia's been threatened by that. That's why they invaded. Doesn't make Putin a good guy. Doesn't make Russia a hero. But that's what they're responding to. Iran has become their strong military ally to help with that. But Iran had a problem that they were at war with Saudi Arabia. Okay? They've had a very long war with the leadership of Saudi Arabia for a long time. Why? Because Iran is Shiite Muslim and Saudi Arabia is Sunni Muslim. And they've even funded separate terror organization channels, Iran funds Hezbollah to attack Israel, and Saudi Arabia funds Al-Qaeda and Hamas. Okay. In theory, though, Saudi Arabia has always been an ally of the United States. So this war that Saudi Arabia had going on against Iran was at the behest of the United States to try to put pressure on Iran so they couldn't develop nuclear weapons to use against Israel. You follow? So, I ran through a lot there, but Saudi Arabia was our ally. Well, they're not anymore. Saudi Arabia just renounced this. Now they're allied with China. Now they're giving all their oil to China and cutting oil to us, which is why your oil prices just went up. Okay? So China came in and brokered this deal because Saudi Arabia is saying, why are we fighting Iran if we're not allied with the United States anymore? What does this benefit us? And China said, it really doesn't, and we don't want you to, because Russia also wants you to stop because they want Iran to be able to help them. So how about we come in and we're going to negotiate this deal because Saudi Arabia, why don't you become part of BRICS too? All right. So this deal was brokered, a peace deal was brokered between Saudi Arabia and Iran so that both could join BRICS. So here you've got Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, all bidding to join. So has Turkey. Turkey has also applied to join BRICS. There's 5 member states that are currently the top candidates to join this year. Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, all Middle Eastern powers, and Argentina. Of course, Mexico wants to join. There's a lot of other countries that want to join. But here's what I think will happen. Okay, so there are 4 major powers in the Middle East. 4 major powers. And I just named them. Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. Why are they? Not only are they powerful as far as oil and political might and population. Well, I don't think Saudi Arabia's got quite as much population, but they're very strategically placed, okay, geographically. Turkey controls the Mediterranean, the Black Sea, that route. Egypt's got the Suez Canal. Iran can control the Persian Gulf. Saudi Arabia has the Red Sea down here on one side and the Indian Ocean on the other. Religiously, they're all important too because Iran is the center of Shiite Islam and Saudi Arabia has Mecca and Medina. Egypt, though, is considered the intellectual head of Islam. All the Muslim scholars, the best Muslim scholars, come from Egypt. And they funded a third terror channel called the Muslim Brotherhood. So you've got these competing powers in the Middle East for power. Those are the main 3. Then Turkey, of course. All Muslims look to Turkey for the seat of the Mahdi, who will establish the Islamic Caliphate. And Erdogan is the true father of ISIS, of the Islamic State, the worst of them all. So, since 2013, the United States has been working a plan with Turkey to destabilize Middle Eastern countries so that Turkey could establish this Islamic Caliphate. Why would we do that? Well, because we were trying to they wanted to counteract Russia's influence in Europe. We wanted to cut their pipeline, their natural gas oil pipelines to Europe. And we told Turkey, we'll help you establish this Islamic Caliphate, which will be an Islamic superpower, which will counterbalance Israel's influence in the Middle East. And in exchange, we want a pipeline built from Qatar through Turkey up to Europe so we can cut them off from Russia. And that was the deal. And we said, we'll support your bid to do this, Erdogan, is what's been told. He's been told. And the Arab Spring was basically the beginning of that process. Well, Saudi Arabia is not stupid. Neither is Iran. They know this stuff is happening. And in fact, I believe that symbolically, the earthquake you saw in Turkey symbolically is connected to this. Because what happened there, geographically speaking, is that the Arabian plate was rubbing against the Anatolian plate. Okay, that's what geologists have said happened. Well, Anatolia is Turkey. So this is literally like Saudi Arabia rubbing up against Turkey, in conflict against Turkey. Saudi Arabia, that's an ulterior motive for them to declare peace with Iran, because what Turkey was doing was destabilizing lesser important countries so they could send in their tanks, because that's what they've been doing. They sent in tanks into Iraq, northern Syria, ready to invade in the name of fighting ISIS, which they themselves control, and all the leaders of Europe, of Middle East, know that everyone controls ISIS, and this is all just sleight of hand and fake. The civil war that was in Libya was actually a war between Turkey and Saudi Arabia. They were both fighting opposite sides and fighting each other in a proxy war, and they basically came to a draw. So Saudi Arabia said to itself, the United States pretends to be our friend, but they're allying themselves and supporting this guy in Turkey to basically create an Islamic superpower, and eventually that would eat us. So why are we supporting the United States in this bid when we don't even agree with them culturally or spiritually or anything else? Why are we fighting Iran? Why are we fighting, we need to maybe switch sides. And that's pretty much what they decided to do. So they did. But all that said, that's the context. Here's what I think is going to happen, okay? Because there's one fly in the ointment for Turkey joining BRICS. I think, and this is pure speculation on my part, I think they're going to admit Iran, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia very soon to BRICS. And I believe that Argentina will also be allowed in. That makes 9. Now, where would the 10th be? Is it Turkey? I'm going to speculate that I don't think so. I think that the BRICS Alliance is going to tell Turkey, no, we're not letting you in right now. Why would they do that? Well, because Iran and Saudi Arabia don't really want them in, neither does Egypt, because they know of Erdogan's ambitions. But there's a more practical reason, neither does Russia, okay, because Turkey is part of NATO. It's a very important part of NATO. Turkey has the second largest army in NATO. Next to the United States, if you took the United States out of NATO, Turkey would become NATO. Turkey is the power after us, and none of the other countries really contribute much at all compared to Turkey, the size of Turkey's operation. So Russia is fighting NATO in Ukraine. They're not going to allow a member of NATO into the BRICS Alliance, since the BRICS Alliance is designed to counteract NATO. Okay, that's my belief. I think they would tell Turkey no. So I think that the 10th member, they're going to allow in either Mexico, which would put North America have a representation in this alliance, or maybe they'll do another African country like Algeria. I'm probably guessing Mexico. The only thing I'm not sure about there is the Mexican leader. I don't perceive him to be really a bad guy yet. Maybe he will be, but maybe there'll be a new leader of Mexico that we haven't seen yet. Don't know. Regardless, I'm guessing Turkey's going to be told no. And then Turkey's response, what if Turkey then turns around and conquers Iran and conquers Saudi Arabia and conquers Egypt militarily, maybe even in 3 swift movements, uprooting 3 horns by the roots? What would happen then? Well, now Turkey has established its Islamic caliphate. That absolutely would establish. Controlling those 3 powers, they would have the caliphate. It would be done. Definitely, others would come under them voluntarily. Maybe 7. Maybe that's where the 10 is. But I think that if Turkey did that, now Turkey has uprooted 3 of the horns of the BRICS Alliance by force, and probably is replacing them with other leaders that work for Turkey. So now what would the BRICS Alliance say to them? I think they would say, are they going to go to war with Turkey over this? Or what would they do if Turkey just said, hey, that's all I want. I'm not after you guys. I just want in the alliance now. Might they then say, okay, you come in. You're in now. So Turkey now controls, in that scenario, Turkey would control 4 of the horns, right? Let's say he didn't erase the borders of Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Iran. He just installed his sympathetic leaders and controls them, okay? So you technically have 4 seats of the 10 under his control, not to mention the entire Middle East, the geographic center, him controlling this geographically important place of the intersection of the Mediterranean with the Indian Ocean and the Suez Canal and Asia, Europe, Africa. If we control that intersection, that's huge. Not to mention all the oil, the military power, the GDP, the population, natural gas reserves. The Islamic Caliphate would become immediately the new superpower and wield more influence and power, frankly, than China or Russia or India could hope to manage even together. So I think the response would be, hey, sure, why don't you have a membership here? And controlling 4 of those horns would give him absolute leverage over the entire BRICS Alliance, which then takes us to verse 12 of Revelation 17. Well, one more back. Let's go back to 11. This scenario, Islamic Caliphate being the revived beast, revived head of the beast, makes sense with this. It says the beast that was Assyria is not the Roman Empire, is himself also the eighth out of 7, and is of the 7. So the revived Islamic Caliphate would be number 8, but is still of the 7. Does that make sense? That's the only thing that makes that cryptic verse make sense. Thankfully, it says, and he's going to perdition. So we don't really need to sweat or worry about these things. He's going to perdition. We just have to endure until the end. That's all we got to do. But verse 12, back to the horns. It says, the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as yet. All right, right there. Anybody that believes that Revelation was partially fulfilled during the Roman Empire and that John was talking about actual emperors of Rome that had already done things, no, it says right here, these are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as of yet. Okay, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. So and it's not 10 successive kings. It's all, they're ruling all at the same time with the beast, who is an 11th. They receive authority for 1 hour, a brief time, as kings with the beast. These are of one mind against the West, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. So that is a verse that indicates that the horns are separate, are different from the beast itself. That they have a role, but that maybe they're not the same as the beast itself. And what I'm understanding is making sense. It makes sense of all of it, okay? And also we go up to verse 16. And the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot and make her desolate and naked, eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So this is a picture of the BRICS Alliance destroying the West. And we've talked a lot on this channel about what we call phase 4 of the Red Horsemen in America, where we see an invasion led by Russia and China and 35 other countries, probably member states of the BRICS Alliance, invading the United States and destroying, doing this very thing, making us desolate, naked, burning us with fire, consuming us. This is what has been seen, which is judgment for our sins. So I believe, I'm not going to say yet that I'm 100% on the BRICS Alliance being the 10 horns, but I'm gaining confidence about it. I'm somewhere between 50 to 70% believing that that we're seeing that develop right now. So anyways, I thought this was interesting. I wanted to make you aware of the BRICS Alliance, of the importance of what looks like it's forming in front of us and how this might connect to prophecy. I hope this has been helpful. Understand that the book of Revelation is not nearly as cryptic as you think. I mean, sure, there's a lot of symbolism, but it can be understood. God gave us prophecy so we could understand it. Part of the reason it was difficult to understand for so many centuries is they couldn't see the political situation that we have going on today. It isn't possible. There's just, if you think about it logically, how could anybody not living in these times now see or know the full interpretation of all these things in Revelation? Because they couldn't see the political alliances. They couldn't see how the world will be divided up. They couldn't see the movements, the conversations that would be happening. But now it's all starting to make sense and be very easily seen for he or she who has eyes to see. That said, what Jesus asks us to do is have ears to hear, which is related to obedience. So all in all, if this is happening, get your house in order is what God is asking us to do. Seek him with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Love him with everything you are. Put him first. Spend time in prayer. Spend time in the Bible every day. Be in community with other Christians. Walk in faith and increase your obedience. These are the things he's asking us to do. And beyond that, he's got our back. He's going to take care of us. We just have to endure to the end and be faithful. Right? So hope you have a great day and keep watching.